pretty much don't have anything to say because he said it all. But I'm going to share with you 3 things. I think that's what they asked me to do. Who I am, what are we doing? I'll take that to what have we done. But I'll start first with who are we, meaning Jeep, not necessarily Pape, Sambe, and why Coders4Africa. That's the 3 things that I will definitely share with you. And it will take just 5 minutes. So, who are we? It's a global youth innovation network. And as you said, it's a youth-led organization, led by youth, run by youth, and managed by youth. And you might wonder, why Global Youth Innovation Network? Why just an organization that's led by youth, managed by youth? It's something that happened in 2010 in Cartagena. A lot of things happened in Cartagena. If you remember, with the US Service Secretary, something happened in Cartagena. So this case is something totally different. I was invited to speak at a conference with 200 youth from all over the world. For 5 days, it was just the adults talking to the youth. For 5 days. And we were saying that we'll solve and fix youth employment. Can you imagine trying to solve youth problems by having a conference organized by adults talking for 5 days without involving youth? That's when I decided with partners to take the challenge on me and create a network, or the first network, that will be led by young people. The first coordinator of that network is here actually. I was from Benin. He happened to be, and he took over the network. We were in 33 countries and he was only 21. Now he travels all over the world, more than I do. He's involved in the Acorn Lighting project. That's why he was here in the summit and all those. We have another member also that I just found out today, thanks to you, who's also part of the Yali, who's here. He's Meyawagi, with Jigan Tech from Senegal. So what we wanted to do was that most of the time in youth employment program, we all make a lot of assumptions that we know how to solve the problems. And there is not enough space for young people to create and innovate and to develop their own jobs. And that's the platform we wanted to create. But when we created the platform, it was really difficult because most of our partners at the beginning, they said, "Pape, there is no way this can happen." This meaning, young people cannot be only the facilitators. Young people cannot be only the panelists. We put an international conference in Benin, hosted by the president of Benin himself, who received all 300 youth in his palace. And then for 3 days was only the young people who showcased their product, talk about their problems, were the facilitators and the panelists. From there, everything took off. Every Sunday, up to last year, the young people would meet online and discuss what are their problems. And we took that initiative and tested it for 3 years. Because whatever we do in G, which is the Global Youth Innovation, we test it. We make sure that we suspend all our judgment from our organizations. Because our organization, we have our own missions and goals. And if you want to solve somebody's problem, you should let them take the lead, not you put yourself in their shoes. And by doing that for 3 years, by testing it, we learned 3 things. More than 3 things, but I'm going to share with you only 3 things. The first one is that when you're developing youth programs, you have to do what we call the knowledge gap. Meaning, try to identify in every country, in every community, what do they have that can use to address their own problems first before you come up with your own ideas and your solution. Because every community has their own asset. You have to be able to identify it. Why we call it knowledge gap is in terms of knowledge, meaning knowing what happened there. There is things that you know, there is things that you don't know, there is things that exist, there is things that don't exist. How can you identify what exists first to be able to bring in what doesn't exist? So that's the first thing that we do. The second thing is that we realize that most of the time there is standard training programs, especially entrepreneurship training programs. where it's already designed, it's already developed, it was designed by somebody, and you just come and say, take this program, it will work. It won't work. Even in the classroom where you have only 2 people, they're totally different. Different in the way they learn, different in the way they think, different in the way they solve problems. So we decided that instead of having those standard programs, we'll develop what we call entrepreneurship innovation-based experimental learning. Meaning the focus will be more on the experimental learning than actually creating a business. Because we tend to forget that failure is a step towards success. But it's only a step towards success if you decide to document your failure and use it as a learning to improve and to move on. So that's what we did the second. The third thing that we learned and we decided was that at the end of the day, no matter how much you know about the community, no matter how much skill and training that you have, if you don't have the capital to start your own business, it won't go. So since most young people, or most people in general, but young people especially, they have a problem to access to finance, to funding. Why? Because banks are banks, we have to accept that. Banks are banks. Businesses are businesses, meaning they want to make money, they want money. And that's how it's supposed to be. But how do you deal with them? Through our experimental programs, we learned that because we went to banks and they told us, we cannot work with you. We say, why? Because these young people you're working with, they have no experience. They have no collateral. And there is a very low possibility, or risk, a high risk, sorry, of them being successful. So that taught us that there are two things that we need to do with banks. The first one is to mitigate the risk with banks. The second one is to increase the likelihood of the young people or young entrepreneurs to pay back. So that's when we created a system that's called microcredit lending through risk mitigation and repayment assessment. Meaning we have to mitigate the bank's risk. How do you do that? The banks want to give money to young people. If you want to mitigate their risk, try to share that money they're giving to you with you. Give 50% and let them give 40%, or decide on a percentage. And that way, you're minimizing the risk the bank is taking, because if they were taking 100% of risk, if you're giving 50, you're minimizing it by 50. The second thing is the repayment assessment. And that's the most important part. Not only the access, the repayment assessment is the most important part. Why? I said earlier that failure is something that is not really accepted, especially in African culture. If you look at most African countries, they have so many initiatives trying to give young people money. They fail for several reasons. But they didn't document that, they didn't increase the possibility of them paying. If they use those people who went through those programs, receive money, and now bring them back again and train them, it will work, or it will be better. So what we're doing is that we said, studies have shown that most small businesses fail within the first 3 years, the 36 months. So we decided that we'll take them through the experimental learning that I described, we'll mentor them, we'll coach them, we'll support them for 3 years while they're starting, growing, and learning their business. After 3 years, we'll add 1 additional year to get them with mentor to support them. By doing that, we're increasing the likelihood of them being successful, but also paying back the bank. And that will cut down the time and the investment the bank was supposed to put in those young people to be able to succeed. So those are the 3 things that we were able to do. And through that, we use those 3 things to develop a new program with a consortium of organizations that we call Creating Opportunity for Rural Youth. And that consortium is comprised of almost 200 organizations, but 56 of them are very active. And while they are active, we were able to create what we call the shared value or the shared partnership, the shared learning. How do they connect the things that they want with the things that we want? How do we connect the things that they want with things that we want? We're all here today because there is something that we share, that's why we're here. It could be different things, but it's something that we share with Coders4Africa. Some of us here came because we care about what they're doing, others came because they want to learn. And that's how any partnership will last. Let's not fool ourselves. We are in a world right now, the social aspect only doesn't work because it doesn't create any wealth. So if you want to build a relationship with anybody, find out what is the things that you share with them. It could be learning, it could be a value that you're creating. Once you find out that, you'll be able to have a long relationship. Otherwise, at some point you will be frustrated, you'll say, I'm just doing for them or I'm doing for them. And through that partnership, through that consortium, we're now implementing what we learned from those 100 countries in 4 countries. Benin, Cameroon, Nigeria, and the Gambia. To take young people and help them create jobs. And by the end of this program, which is 3 years, which is the first phase, because the second phase will add also 4 years, so on and so on, we'll create 43,200 jobs. That's the goal. And based on the studies and the data and the partners and the consortium, it's really strong, and there is a strong possibility that we'll achieve this at least by 80%. Because we have done it, we have tested it, we have people behind it, we have data. So this is what we have done. After telling you who are we, now I'll tell you why Coders4Africa. And how you will love me. You didn't pay me. When we learn all those things, we said we need to document these things. We need to put it on a platform that people can use and can understand. We need to use a language that people can understand. And I say people, I mean the people within the consortium, the people we target. Of course, I said we have 200 organizations behind us. But none of them speak Africa. And when I say speak Africa, they don't understand the culture. They have the technology, but they don't understand the culture. Imagine having Andrew and I being on the phone, talking about the platform, which we call the Coding solution. The other one is developing it for us. But speaking in Wolof to develop a technology. That's so cool. So not only that, they have other people in almost all the African countries that we work with who understand the culture, but also have the knowledge. And they have the quality of work, they have the work ethic of the West, and also the values of the Africans, but also understand young people, understand entrepreneurship, and can translate technology into entrepreneurship to create jobs adapted and based on African culture. So thank you so much, Coders4Africa. And this is why we need it for them.